The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. Talk radio for the thinking person, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
Start spreading the news. I'm leaving today.
Yep, Cruz is on the way out with a broken suitcase. He got trounced by a real New Yorker, Donald Trump. Look, I've not been a great supporter of Ted Cruz. I felt he was too weaselly to ever win. I think he's a brilliant guy. He knows all of the facts. He's like a walking encyclopedia of conservatism. He's a good man, a true constitutionalist. He's unelectable. But last night, he was knocked out of the ring. Not only did he lose last night, Trump knocked him out of the ring. That's the end of that story. Cruz also insulted people in New York, and boy, did Trump come back. You're listening to the Savage Nation. We're going to talk a little bit about the debate last night, because it's very important to tell you that I predicted that Mortadella with eyeglasses from Fox News would do just what the Mortadella did. Didn't I tell you that the Mortadella from Fox News, Neil Cavuto, would do this? Didn't I warn you that Neil Cavuto, who has the brains of a Mortadella that's been cured too long, would do exactly what he did? It's not that I didn't expect the Mortadella to do that. What I didn't expect was for Trump and Cruz to take the bait from the Mortadella, but they did. They fell into the eligibility trap, which they shouldn't have done. And if I would say Neil Cavuto should be ashamed of himself, to be a waste of breath. Okay? The man has no shame. That's why he works for Rupert Murdoch. But the fact of the matter is, the debate was fabulous. Anyone on that stage would make for a better president than the carpetbagger from Chappaqua. I mean, let's be clear. There wasn't a man on that stage, including Carly Fiorina, who wouldn't make a better... did I say that? There wasn't a man on that stage, including Carly Fiorina. Should I have said exclude? Leslie, there wasn't a person on that stage who would not make for a better president than the carpetbagger from Chappaqua. So those are some of the topics. I'll play some of the sound. There are other stories that I don't even want to alarm you with, because they're so awful. They're just so awful. Here is a man who gets up on Tuesday with the State of the Union address and tells us that the economy has never been better and the stock market's in free fall right now. There could be a banking crisis on Monday. Did you hear him on Tuesday? The man is such a inveterate, psychopathic, sociopathic liar. He says we have the greatest military. The same day they apologize to the Iranians, they say they didn't apologize. The greatest economy, the market collapses. And take a guess where Barry is today. Take a guess with these two huge embarrassments where your president is. He just appeared not before the world, not before the United States press, which would be low enough. He went on YouTube to talk to two crackheads who have a large following of drug addicts on YouTube to talk about what's right with America, what's wrong with America, and why America loves Donald Trump, and he blames it all on talk radio. The phone number is 855-407-282. It's open mic to Mike Friday, which means we can catch up from the week if you want. There were some great topics. I would say the high point for me was the Michael Levine interview, the DEA agent, but I don't know what else we could say about it. We have Sean Penn sounding like a scared child, giving his first appearance since fingering the drug lord. I mean, that's what he did. He's trying to say he didn't. I wouldn't want to be him, man. I don't want that kind of 15 minutes of fame, let me tell you. If he's that desperate after an Academy Award or two to still be relevant, you know. So again, let's go to the callers, WVNN. Eric, you're the first up. Go ahead, please. What's on your mind?
Michael, I saw Trump in Birmingham, Alabama at the rally, and I used my few seconds in front of his face to talk about you. I said, Trump, please put in Michael at Department of Health and Human Services. And he said, Mike, you think he'd do a good job? And I said, yes. And he goes, he's a smart guy. I don't know if you're serious about it, but if you would take some time off from radio and if he appoints you to run that department, I think this country would be so better off.
I only touched on it twice, and people thought I was kidding. I'm not kidding. If Trump wins, and if he still knows me, things happen when people become president. They don't remember mere talk show hosts. But the thing is, if he did, and if he said to me, look, Michael, you're an able guy, would you like to run any agency for me to straighten out the mess that's been made by these past administrations, plural? I would say yes, and I would definitely move to Washington to run HHS. And what I would do is cut welfare. I would cut the Social Security Disability Fund like you cannot believe. I'd get every fraudster off SSI. I would throw all the people off SSDI. All the fake writers in San Francisco better go find a job cleaning toilets, because all those people collecting crazy checks, sitting in cafes, cursing America, you're going to be looking for a job very soon. I would uncover all the fraud in these disability payouts. You have no idea what kind of money is going out here on fake disability in this country. Then I'd go and look at the NIH and the CDC, which these were two of the greatest organizations in the world. They have fallen down to the level of just being, I don't know what to say. They're nothing. They don't warn us about the diseases being brought in by immigrants. They cover it up for the president. And moreover, there's no good science coming out of it anymore. It's all political science. Really, the only research that gets funded, by and large, there may be exceptions, is research that is approved by the government. Truly original scientific research has to be funded independently, if that's even done anymore. I would change all of that. I'd create a entire section. Well, I don't want to get into it. This is too esoteric for the average listener. But I thank you for talking to Donald about that. I would think of it. I would consider it. The only reason I would ever leave and move to Washington, D.C. would be to run an organization to straighten it out in my golden years. To be a fitting end to my life would be wind up a bureaucrat in Washington. I would turn gray. I would turn sallow within 3 months. I can't imagine answering to people and sitting at desks, having meetings, putting a suit and tie on every day. That's so not me. If I could run it by Skype, I would consider it. If I could run it like Hugh Hefner runs the Playboy empire, in pajamas, a bathrobe, and run the HHS by Skype. I probably could run it by Skype and do a better job than they're doing in Washington. See, I don't like lording it over anyone. These bureaucrats get off on that. Their whole thing is they like to have people come in and kowtow to them. I don't like that. I'm not into it. That's why I'd be a good bureaucrat, because I wouldn't be a good one. I'd be a very bad one. I'd actually get things done. But let's not go there. It's really not about me. Last night's debate was very interesting. I did watch it. I had my warrior friend over, Doc, who fought in 5 wars. I think he's the only one. I asked him, do you know anyone else who's fought in 5 wars? From Vietnam through 2005, he was a medic with a forward operating, he was a medic with a sniper team, a 5-man sniper team. I didn't know anything about him. I only know him as a nice guy who plays good music. He was a first-class doctor. I had no idea he was deeply in combat like that. He doesn't show it. This is the thing about really tough men that I found in my whole life. From the time I was a kid. The toughest guys generally don't look it. And they don't exhibit it. And they generally don't show it off. You see, we're used to movie star tough guys. And we think that tough guys look a certain way. They don't. And take a 140-pound kid who's 20 years old, who's wiry. He's a tough kid. Watch out for that 140-pounder made of iron. The wiry ones. Watch out for the wiry ones. That's what I always say. But let's put that aside. Let's go on to the reality of it. So we watched the thing for a half an hour or so, and it was raining like heck out here. And he took off. We didn't even get to dinner. The rain was too heavy. I had a couple of... He doesn't drink. He's smarter than me. And I said to him, Doc, if you don't mind, I'm putting the debate on. I'm going to have a drink. He said, no, I don't mind. I said, well, I would have it whether you mind it or not, so thank you. And I had a drink and I watched the debate. He sat there not drinking, and he watched it, and he had certain things to say from the point of view of being a warrior. Believe me, he had certain things to say quietly in his own California way. But Michael, being a hyperverbal New Yorker, you can leave the Bronx, but you can't leave it forever. I talk a lot. I talk in my sleep. I talk to myself. I dream to myself. I talk to God. God talks to me. And it's all the time a dialogue going on, a monologue really going on. And that's why I'm so great on radio. So we have sailors captured this week, and John Kerry says that's great. We have sailors giving up without a fight, without firing so much as a slingshot. That's okay to the new America. We have sailors who we still don't know what happened, why they went off course and wound up aground on Farsi Island. They were actually, the news story now is they didn't go aground. That's the third iteration of what actually happened. The third story came out today, and I'll tell you about that later on today. They came up with another folk tale about what happened to our two fast boats, how they wound up on the island. The whole thing is a charade, in my opinion, and no one in the media is following it up. Nobody is following it up. Nobody is following it up. Nobody jumped on it the way I did. I smelled an Obama from the beginning. I smelled an Obama on that Navy thing from the beginning. That's going to become a new verb, an Obama. Don't you try to pull an Obama on me. That might wind up in our lexicon for years to come. Yes, he's not a noun. He's a verb. Obama's become a verb. Don't you dare try to pull an Obama on me. 855-400-7282. The issue of poor old Ted Cruz is finished. Rubio looked like the kid he is. I'm sorry. I mean, the guy looked like a kid. He was so out of his league. Carson, till he makes a statement, till he finishes a statement, I don't know how to put it. He's probably a very bright guy. Nobody becomes a pediatric neurosurgeon based on anything but sheer skill and brains. I give him that. I respect the man enormously. He'd be a great surgeon, which is what he is. But till he makes a statement, as we used to say in New York, till he makes a statement, you could faint. You sit and wait for him to complete his thought. You're sitting there scratching the table. Your toes are curling up inside your shoe, hoping to God he doesn't make a mistake. You don't know what he's going to say. Christie, I'll tell you the truth. I liked Christie, but I don't trust Christie. Christie makes all the right moves. He looks like an alpha male, but he isn't. I mean, actually, he may be an alpha male of a certain cetacean kind. But the thing is, I don't trust him because of the hug with Obama last summer. Remember? That was it. The hug was it. Anyone, I'm sorry, that was a little giveaway right there, that hug, the hug picture. Anyone can make a mistake. But the thing is, who else is there on the stage that you think could beat Hillary, number one, and would make a great president? Nobody. That's why Donald Trump is going to be the president of the United States. By the way, I'm the only talk show host in America who could proudly tell you that I backed Trump from day one before the others backed him. They were stabbing him in the back. Am I wrong? Don't ever forget that. They're all going to revise their histories and say they were for him when they were against him. They've all become, in my mind, very much like politicians. But never forget, I read this from the beginning. I like the man's politics. I know he's a good man. And I know, yeah, sure, he mangles the English language. So what? Look what happens when you have a super articulate president who mangles the Constitution. Back in a minute.
Senator Cruz, you suggested Mr. Trump, quote, embodies New York values. Could you explain what you mean by that?
I think most people know exactly what New York values are.
Stop there.
I am from New York.
You're from New York.
Hold it. I said stop it. That means timing. That means stop it when I say stop it. The innuendo from Cruz is all you need to know. The cover-up after that is an addendum. It was a put-down on New Yorkers, as though all New Yorkers are a monolithic breed. And all New Yorkers are like Nancy Pelosi. That's what he was implying. And he really stepped in it, and it shows that he made a big, big mistake. But the fact of the matter is, Cruz then doubled down and made a fool of himself. I don't know if you could pick it up from there. Can you, Robert? Or you have to go from the beginning? If you can pick it up from there, we have a system here that's not, where he goes, people from New York, blah, blah, blah. And he says, I think most people know what that means. Then she says, I'm from New York. I don't know what it means. And he says, what? Let's see it.
I think most people know exactly what New York values are.
I am from New York.
What you're from New York, so you might not. But I promise you in the state of South Carolina, they do.
Oh, that's a triple insult.
Listen,
you get it?
there are many, many wonderful, wonderful working men and women in the state of New York. But everyone understands that the values in New York City are socially liberal or pro-abortion or pro-gay marriage, focus around money and the media. And I would note, indeed, the reason I said that is I was asked, my friend Donald has taken to at his events playing Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA. And I was asked what I thought of that, and I said, well, if he wanted to play a song, maybe he could play New York, New York.
All right, very funny. Ted Cruz is not funny. I'm sorry, if I were a booking agent, I wouldn't book his act. That's not funny, Ted. No. If Ted Cruz wanted to play a song, he could probably play an old Havana tune. You want to go there? I happen to like Cuban people, but that's what he's trying to say here. What, everyone's like Castro because they're from Cuba? I mean, that's what he's implying. I'm from California. I, Michael Savage, have been here since 1974. So I consider myself a Californian. Am I like San Francisco in values? In some ways, I am. I think some of the values are wonderful in San Francisco. But in terms of all the value, how do you say a person represents all of the values? What's her name? Pelosi represents San Francisco values, which are anti-American, anti-family, anti-church, anti-God, etc. Now we go back to Trump's comeback, which is what this is really all about. And you want to see how fast this guy is on his feet and how he got rich just because he knows how to get back at his enemies. In this debate, he comes back the way he's going to come back to China, the way he's going to come back at Japan, the way he's going to come back at all of our domestic and foreign enemies. Listen to the comeback in clip 7.
Conservatives actually do come out of Manhattan, including William F. Buckley and others, just so you understand. And just so, if I could, because he insulted a lot of people, I've had more calls on that statement that Ted made. New York is a great place. It's got great people. It's got loving people, wonderful people. When the World Trade Center came down, I saw something that no place on earth could have handled more beautifully, more humanely than New York. You're 100.
That's it.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE.
Conservatives actually do come out of Manhattan, including William F. Buckley and others, just so you understand. And just so, if I could, because he is...
This was handled well last night by Trump, and Cruz showed himself, I don't know, to be not I wouldn't say mean-spirited. That doesn't mean that much to me. Anyone who's an alpha male is mean-spirited when need be. And if they're not, they shouldn't run for the office. I frankly want a mean-spirited alpha male winning the presidency. Because I really want someone to take on the enemies of America, domestic and foreign. And it's not going to be done by someone who is not really that mean. You need meanness and intelligence. So, look, the New York Times is gloating over this in their stupid headline. Trump and Cruz take feud off stage after a bit of debate. Cruz emerges as a skilled and slashing opponent. Anything they can do to take down Trump. Here's a guy who they don't like anyway, and they know he can't win against Hillary, meaning Cruz. They know that Trump will swamp her, so they're trying to take him down through the Cruz thing. That's all. Let's go to the callers for 1 minute. Kerry on KSFO. What's your point, please?
Hi, I've been a fan since 2001. I love you. Hey, it's open to interpretation, subtext, context. Cruz is talking about New York in this fashion, not about 9/11. He's talking about the blue state, Charlie Rangel mentality, teachers union, teachers that can't get fired, doing drugs. He's talking.
Wait, all of that is true, but he says that Donald Trump embodies these values. Do you believe that?
Well, he was, yeah, but you got to remember, I like Trump. I mean, I would love anybody. I hate Hillary Clinton's a psycho. But I definitely would love to have Trump in there, but he was a liberal at one time.
Yes, that's probably true. But there are other people who were liberals at one time.
Well, Reagan...
people's politics do change if they're an adult. Politics emerge if you're an adult. If Obama had been an adult... And if Michelle Obama had been an adult, when she started out, she said she's always been, what'd she say? She was never proud to be an American until this day when they made her vice, whatever she is a first lady. If she actually analyzed what she has gotten from this nation and how kind the white people are for voting for her and that they're not racist, her politics would have evolved by now after 7 years. But I see no sign of evolution in either of the Obamas. I see more meanness than when they started. So what I'm saying is maybe Trump was a liberal at one time on some social issues. Maybe he has emerged. Maybe he hasn't emerged. We don't know yet. And I know your trepidation is that he really is a social liberal and a fiscal conservative. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know if I would say that. One thing I do know something about, and that's Islam. And I'm going to tell you something what Barack Hussein practices.
But wait, hold it. Let's not go there for right now. Let's hold it. Who is it who's made Islam the issue? It was Trump who made it an international issue, right?
What's that?
Thank you for the call. It was Trump who made Muslims an international issue. How can you fault him on that and call him a liberal for that? In fact, Germany is now starting to think that Trump is right. By the way, look at the headline, even on the psycho New York Times, which certainly represents New York values, sexual assaults in Germany point to a culture clash. Oh, really, do they? There's a culture clash between radical Islam and our way of life? They just discovered that? The old lady, the gray old lady, suddenly discovered that? Yeah, okay, you get the picture. I'm not going to relive the entire debate, but I will play parts of it. He's then asked on a Muslim ban in clip 8, and it's worth listening to. It's about less than a minute. Here is Trump on whether he would reconsider a Muslim ban. Listen
Mr.
to
Trump,
08.
Your comments about banning Muslims from entering the country created a firestorm. According to Facebook, it was the most talked about moment online of your entire campaign, with more than 10 million people talking about the issue. Is there anything you've heard that makes you want to rethink this position?
No. No.
And that's the end of the story.
We have to stop with political correctness. We have to get down to creating a country that's not going to have the kind of problems that we've had with people flying planes into the World Trade Centers, with the shootings in California, with all the problems all over the world. I just left Indonesia. Bomb, 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 bomb. We have to find out what's going on. I said temporarily. I didn't say permanently. I said temporarily.
So, that makes him a liberal? So, you know, think about what you're saying. Are you worried about what he may have believed in 20 years ago? Look at what he's saying today, and I don't believe he's saying it just for effect. So last night was a big deal. It was a very big deal. And the story of the president lying about the economy and lying about the military and about Kerry lying through his teeth about what happened. The defense secretary should be sacked immediately for lying about what happened with those boats. That's a huge issue, by the way. I don't know that we're going to get to this. And this is for the potheads in the audience, those of you who listen just to hate me. Cannabis-related painkiller trial disaster leaves 1 brain dead and 5 injured. 1 person has been left brain dead and 5 others are in serious condition after taking part in a clinical trial in France of an experimental painkiller made by Portuguese drug company Bial. The French health ministry said today. The medicine involved works by targeting the body's pain-controlling endocannabinoid system, which is also responsible for the human response to marijuana. The ministry said the 6 volunteers in Western France have been in good health until taking the oral medication at a private facility that specializes in carrying out clinical trials. All men were healthy, aged 28 to 49. 1 started taking the marijuana derivative on January 7th. 1 person started feeling ill on Sunday and the other 5 afterwards. You hear this? Cannabis-related painkiller trial disaster leaves 1 brain dead and 5 injured. Don't jump and assume that medical marijuana is as safe as the drug peddlers tell you. It's like any other drug. It has never been put through proper clinical trials. Oh, you may feel good eating that brownie. I get it. But you don't know what the long-term effects are. You should think about that carefully. Don't call me on anything to do with marijuana because the pot defenders are overwhelmingly boring and stupid. WABC Joe, welcome to the Savage Nation.
Hello, Michael. With the visual effects that Trump produces is incredible. He's a genius. His facial expressions, those come out. Even when he went after Cruz with the 9/11 and Cruz was just standing there with that funny face. It was like, oh, yeah, what did I do? Trump is just a master at this, and that's what
Trump, you know, it's interesting you're raising an issue I've never discussed, but Trump's faces have changed. He's got him down now pretty good, doesn't he? The masks of disdain, the masks of condemnation, the masks of... he's got pretty good facial expressions, doesn't he?
Yeah, the non-verbal communication is very effective to people. You remember in the Nixon debate with Kennedy, right? The visual. It's very visual. And,
I really don't remember it at all. I paid no attention to Nixon versus Kennedy. I was a young guy. I didn't care very much about politics at that time. Truthfully, I was more interested in the girl's ponytail in front of me, and the desk in front of me, and if she'd go out with me. So I really don't remember the Nixon debate. No, but Trump's nonverbal communication is a very big story. There's no question about it. So do you think Cruz is out of the box now? Finished?
Michael, also with Kasich, if you look at him, his one hand is down.
They don't hear me anymore. I think the feedback system shot my call screening. Let me ask you again. Do you think Cruz is finished?
Me? Hello?
You. Caller, do you think Cruz is finished?
Yeah, I think he's very weakened, absolutely. But I think he was actually working for Trump. It actually helped promote Trump tremendously.
Oh, he didn't. You don't think he consciously? They worked out a scam where he'd work for Trump, do you?
No, he didn't do it consciously, but he absolutely helped Trump. No,
you're saying inadvertently he wound up supporting Trump. That's what you're saying.
Really?
Look, the main thing is that we have a real debate. You know, one thing we can be proud of as conservatives is that we actually debate issues, and we can see how phony the liberals are. They don't even debate anything. We can see what a fixed system the communists really run. All you're going to do is see the fact that there is no debating at all on the Democrat side. There are no debates, no discussion, no issues permitted to be put up on the stage. It's just her with that fake Cheshire cat scalpel face. I can't take it anymore. Forget Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders is a fall guy for her. You talk about a setup. I'm very proud to tell you it's great to be a conservative right now. And especially in talk radio, I got to tell you that. You may not know this, but Donald Trump has actually possibly saved talk radio in a certain way. Do you know that? Do you realize he's made it okay to be bold, outspoken, and express conservative values, as I've been doing for so many years, borders, language, and culture? Do you realize he's made it acceptable to the mainstream, where people are saying, you know, he's not really that bad? In the beginning, maybe, I don't know about him. He's too bright. He's a phony. He's just a showman. All of a sudden, everything's changed. The more they see him, the more they like him, especially when you compare him to the Harridan from Chappaqua. And the fact is that Trump has made conservatism mainstream. I hope he wins. I think he would, unless it's a rigged system or the Republicans undermine him by selling out the voting machines, whatever they may do. They're running scared. They're terrified. All the men in the bad suits. Oh, the men in the bad suits are really frightened. But as I say, I'll stand by that statement. Trump has made talk radio a winning proposition for those of us on the conservative side. I've been working in the wilderness for 20 years, where things I said may have been good for the audience, but the people at the top probably were a little leery of it. They were afraid of it. They were afraid of some of the things that I was saying, borders, language, and culture. It became like, oh, really? What is he talking about? No one believes in those things. Well, guess what they found out? They found out that everyone who is an American and loves America wants our borders secure, wants English as the official language, and wants the culture of America reaffirmed and supported. So in that regard, he's made my message, my motto, borders, language, culture, acceptable, if not fashionable. And that's why I supported him from day one. It's because what he was saying sounded eerily like me. If I were running for president, I got news for you. When Trump first started to run, and I don't even remember when that was, What I heard from him, and I don't mean in his voice or his delivery, I always like the guy, because I happen to like, what's the word I'm looking for? I like over-the-top people who are really smart. I like people who are bold enough to just get out there and say it. If you got it, flaunt it kind of thing. Let's put it to you that way. And he's really got it. So I heard him say things that I said, wait, they sound eerily familiar to me. And then I looked at Stop the Coming Civil War, and many of my bullet points for what should be done were identical. Identical. And then I wrote the new one. Came out in October, big bestseller, Government Zero, my 40 points to save America. I hear it echoed in Donald Trump. And sometimes I have to ask myself, is he echoing what's in my book because his staff read it, recorded and fed it to him? And I have to say no, because I think it's what he really believes. I don't think he needs any lieutenants to tell him what makes common sense. It's that simple. So that's why I like Trump. No other personal reason. I like his salad bar at Mar-a-Lago, but I haven't been there in over a year. I went there in 2015 for Christmas Eve, and I haven't been there in all of the rest of the year. I've been there in Florida once this year. Would you believe that? It's not like we're buddies. That picture of me and Donald with my dog Teddy on michaelsavage.com was taken, I think, that Christmas Eve, or 2 years before that, when I still look good. I went downhill pretty fast in the last 2 years. No, I was still looking good. So what's the breaking news, Robert? There's something happening. The market's collapsing, like Hillary's campaign. The market's falling faster than Hillary's campaign is. You know, if she's indicted, what are we going to have? Let's see. Oh, well, let me see how I figure this out. If she's actually indicted by the FBI, let's see. It's Trump versus Colonel Sanders' illegitimate relative. Are you joking? You know, I'll say it again. If it's a vote between a very successful, brash New York billionaire named Donald Trump and some down-in-the-mouth ILGWU union organizer who spittles on himself, communist, and I'll call him what he is, never mind socialist, he's a lifetime communist, Bernie Sanders, it's a 90-10. The unions will bolt away from dirty Sanders. The illegal aliens will bolt away from dirty Sanders. The minorities will bolt away from dirty Sanders. Back in a minute. I know there's a lot of people who love Trump, and then there are people who are a little afraid of him. They have one girl, Barbara, saying Trump sounds like a real commander-in-chief. Randy in Pennsylvania saying Trump would be more of a king than a president. I kind of like that. Both of those things. You know, last night I had my friend over, Doc, I told you, Green Beret, 5 wars. I'm helping him get his book published because I respect him so much. Medic with a sniper team in Iraq, in the area of the Sunni Triangle in 2005. I said, wasn't that the birthplace of ISIS? He said, yes. So the worst people on earth he faced down. One of the nicest guys I know. So I'm sitting here at my desk last night before the debate, and my poor assistant, Ryan, I asked him to get something, and I don't talk to people. I bark orders. So Doc laughed, and he said to Ryan, he said, don't take it personally. He said, he's a 4-star general. He said, that's how 4-star generals talk. He said, you're his lieutenant. He said, and you're a darn good lieutenant. He said, but Michael's a 4-star general. He said, that's the way he talks. That's the way they talk. I really like that. It helped me understand myself better. The only one I don't do that to is Teddy, because I think even 4-star generals need mascots. Anyway, folks, it's a great time to be a conservative who believes in borders, language, and culture in America, is it not? More when I return.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. Talk radio for the thinking person, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
Known it from the very start. This girl that leave me with a broken heart. Listen, people, what I'm telling you, I'll keep away from a run around Sue, yeah. My little lips and a
I never listened to the lyrics of this song. I had no idea what the lyrics meant. I guess there was some truth in some of these songs. Who knows? But the thing is this. We already touched on the New York values issue that went on last night, and Cruz got knocked out of the ring. I'm a boxing fan. I'm not a boxer. I love sports like that. I like martial sports of any kind. I like brutal sports because it's pretty clear when someone wins in a brutal sport. And politics is a brutal sport. Cruz got beaten. He went at Trump. He threw a hook. He missed, and Trump knocked him out of the ring on the issue of the New York values. Then there was the issue last night. And don't get me wrong, I think Cruz is a great man. I think he's a smart man. I think he's a great constitutional scholar. And I'd love to see Cruz running the Justice Department, by the way. I'd like to see Ted Cruz on the U.S. Supreme Court, by the way. Don't think I'm running him down saying he's not valuable to this country. Please don't get me wrong. But I'm a realist. If I'm anything, I'm a realist. Trump can beat Hillary and the machine. Cruz cannot beat Hillary and the machine. End of story. But we have to go into what happened last night after the New York values issue, which we covered, as I said. There was right off the bat the mortadella with eyes, Cavuto, set them up against each other on the birth issue. And to his eternal shame, Neil shouldn't have done that. I'm sure Neil is a nice man, but Neil is not that bright. A nice guy who's not bright is a very dangerous man because his controllers set him up for these kind of things. And they wrote the question. I was reading the script. Did you see him looking down? Did you see Cavuto looking at his papers? He literally had to read it like running his finger over the lines to set them up, word by word. So he goes and sets them up on the birth issue. And then Cruz comes back about the birth issue in clip 3, which we're going to play now on the Savage Nation.
You know, back in September, my friend Donald said that he had had his lawyers look at this from every which way. And there was no issue there. There was nothing to this birther issue. Now, since September, the Constitution hasn't changed. But the poll numbers have. And I recognize that Donald is dismayed that his poll numbers are falling in Iowa. But the facts and the law here are really quite clear. Under long-standing U.S. law, the child of a U.S. citizen born abroad is a natural-born citizen. If a soldier has a child abroad, that child is a natural-born citizen. That's why John McCain, even though he was born in Panama, was eligible to run for president. If an American missionary has a child abroad, that child is a natural-born citizen. That's why George Romney, Mitt's dad, was eligible to run for president, even though he was born in Mexico.
That's the end of the story. It's over. He did a beautiful job, and that's what I like about Cruz. He's specific in his answers. He is super articulate in his answers. He's infallibly correct in what he just said. I'm really angry, though, at Cavuto for making this the big issue instead of the issues that are so darn important to us. And then I'm also very proud to be a conservative who's been at the front of the sled dog pack for so many years with ideas on borders, language, and culture, which were quite unfashionable until Trump came along. And I mean unfashionable not with you, the listener, but unfashionable with the mainstream, let's say, audience. They don't even know what the word borders, they didn't know what the word borders meant. They had no idea. And language, they figured, let anyone talk anything they want in a country. It's a free country. That's true, but not in public business and certainly not for voting. If I could advise Donald Trump on that issue, if you can't read and write English, you don't vote in this country. I would change the law. I'd make it what it was intended to be. No ballots can be written in any language other than English. How do you think we wound up with Nancy Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein, and Barbara Boxer since Methuselah was a young man? It's because they rigged the election in San Francisco and they wrote the ballots in 7 languages to make certain that the illegal aliens could vote and drive the ordinary American English-speaking taxpayer right out of representation. That's how these Methuselah-like individuals are still in office for 6,000 years. They rigged the election by rechanging the entire meaning of the election, in my opinion. I have to always add in my opinion. Actually, that statement doesn't even need it, in my opinion. It's a fact of reality. They wrote the law. The ballots in San Francisco are at least in 6 languages. They should only be in English. And that's something that should happen on a national level, too, on a federal level. Now, I don't want to forget the boat story this week because it's changing every day. Iran, the U.S. worked this out in advance, and I believe it was a kabuki dance. First, we were told that they went off course with their GPS. Then they changed the story today to the fact that they were running out of gas, and one of them conked out altogether for mechanical troubles. And then they wound up, the Iranian Navy towed them to Farsi Island. Was a big missing point in here. Where was the Navy support ship, the mothership that they came from? Do you remember I raised that the first day? The only one in the media who's a boater? Is there anyone in the media who's a boater? Is anyone in talk radio a boater but me? No, I'm a boater. And I told you right off the bat, where was the mothership? Where were the fast attack helicopters that could have been there in about a minute? Why were they not launched by the great commander of the aircraft carrier? Or, in fact, it's not an aircraft carrier from which they came. My guess is that they were launched from the type of ship that I see during Fleet Week here, that the Marine Expeditionary Forces are launched from. But the fact is they have attack helicopters on them with some of the finest pilots in the world. They could have flown in there and offered cover and gotten those boats out of there. The whole thing stinks to high heaven. This was an orchestrated event set up by the United States government in cahoots with Iran for reasons that you're going to learn in the next few minutes. Richard, on KSFO, you win the prize. I think you know what happened there. Go ahead, please.
Welcome from a sheeple in San Francisco. Michael, we're all looking at the left hand while the right hand at the same time this was going on. 10 people were released to Gitmo back to Iran at the same time, and they gave us back 10. No different than the Bergdahl fraud. It's a fraud by our government on American people and nothing else. We're looking at the left hand while the right hand is doing something else. We're all...
Well, hold on. It happened to be a few days before the phony in the White House, the actor in the White House, the disgrace in the White House, released 10 of them from Gitmo, and they were sent not to Iran, but to Onan, believe it or not. I'm sorry, not Onan. Onanism is something else in the Bible, not Onan. A country that sounds like Onan, but it's not Onan. They'll be released back on the battlefield in any case in a very short period of time. So you're saying that Obama orchestrated this to cover that up is what you're basically alleging, right?
Yes, sir. That is exactly it. And I come from way back when I was trained by men in the 50s from Korea and World War II. Don't look at the obvious. Look at the backhand of it. And that...
Well, there's no question that the administration is extremely traitorous. But how did they make the boats go, whatever they did? How'd they make one conk out? How'd they make them go aground? How'd they make them captured by Iran? What happened there? Why didn't the boats? Because the standard orders are not to give up when you're approached by enemy ships, is it? It's to fight your way out of a situation. It's to call in backup. What happened? There was no call back to the aircraft carrier, they say. Do you believe that story? I don't.
No. That is why they've got us looking at that story rather than the main thing was...
So they're making these young kids the fall guy for what this evil, backstabbing administration is doing. Maybe they did call in for backup and for help. And maybe the captain of the mothership, so to speak, was told not to send any backup. Maybe that's the real story. It's like Benghazi all over again. And I'll go on record right now. We have another Benghazi under the cafe singer in the White House. He did it again. It's another Benghazi. Only this time nobody was killed, thank God. I wouldn't have been surprised if they all got killed by Iran.
That would not have been it. They made them bow down. They took our woman in a combat thing and dressed her in a monkey suit. It's disgraceful. This man should be impeached. End of conversation.
Yes, sir. You're getting a copy of Government Zero because, of all people on earth, you know exactly what's going on. His main point is the boat story was a ruse by the shyster in the White House to cover the prisoner release from Gitmo. The whole thing stinks to high heaven. If we had a legitimate press, they'd be investigating this from top to bottom. Instead, they're talking about Cruz's eligibility, Trump's hairdo, right? 855-400-7282, phone number, michaelsavage.com website. I have no mats to sell you, no undershirts, no products, nothing with my name on it. except Government Zero. All I do is write and talk. That's all. I have no other products. So let's see. There's another Cruz clip that's worth playing because, again, I don't want you to assume I'm saying Cruz is somebody I don't respect. I do. Listen to what he said in clip 10 that I think is superb, and Cruz would make a great head of the United States. He'd make a great attorney general. And I hope that if if Trump wins, I'm getting tired. It's Friday. I hope that when Trump wins, he offers the position of Attorney General to Ted Cruz, and that Ted Cruz is gracious enough to accept that position. And he cleans house in the Justice Department. Let's listen to Ted Cruz in clip number 10.
Today, many of us picked up our newspapers, and we were horrified to see the sight of 10 American sailors on their knees with their hands on their heads. In that State of the Union, President Obama didn't so much as mention the 10 sailors that had been captured by Iran. President Obama is preparing to send $100 billion or more to the Ayatollah Khamenei. And I'll tell you, it was heartbreaking. But the good news is the next commander-in-chief is standing on this stage. And I give you my word, if I am elected president, no serviceman or servicewoman will be forced to be on their knees, and any nation that captures our fighting men and women will feel the full force and fury of the United States of America.
That's a beautiful speech. Cruz could be a great attorney general. He could be a great defense secretary. Instead of these wimps and cowards and jackals that Obama has appointed, these yes men that are running everything wrongly. Every one of the men on that stage, including Carly Fiorina, I said it again. I don't want to modify, but every one of the Republican candidates on that stage would make a better president than the imposter from Chappaqua. And I'm proud to tell you, I'm proud to be a conservative watching conservatives debate, while Hillary Clinton has nothing, no debates whatsoever, ever. There have been no debates with Hillary Clinton. None whatsoever. It's right out of the ex-Soviet Union. She's like a female Khrushchev in about the same level of style. Back in a minute.
I ran all the way.
So I'm not into this music anymore. No, I've moved on. I think the 50s rock and roll phase of my show is over. It's been 21 years. It's worked great. I don't even know of any music that would fit the show anymore. When you think about it, there's no music that fits my mood, my nature, my view. The world's changed so drastically. And I don't know that we're going to get through the next number of months with this con man in the White House. I can't state with any confidence that this man, this treacherous thing in the White House, won't do something so disastrous to us that we won't recover from. I think he's working with the Iranian government on this boat issue. I believe that there's so much more to this story that we should know about it. We should know. How did they not fight back? How did they not fight back? I never heard of the Navy surrendering. I don't understand it. Look, the Iranian patrol boats were very superior in both speed and firepower. That I understand. They could have blown them out of the water with one shot. They had huge cannons. And these boats, I don't think, carry anything more than 50 cals. I don't know what they carry. But when you're facing a 40 millimeter or 76 millimeter range-pointed gun at you, I guess they surrender and hands up, or they would have died. Okay, then how did they get there? How did they get there? How did they get there? The released sailors, you watch when they're released. That's if, I'm very worried about them. My fear is that they're going to suddenly disappear. I'm serious. This is what really worries me. These young people on those boats, I am very worried that they will be harmed by this government. That's what I'm very worried about. That's what I'm very worried about. They didn't stray into the Iranian waters. That's a nonsensical story. That is complete BS from one side of it to the other. Nonsense. We have people sending in emails who were Navy SEALs in the 80s, and they know about this kind of operation. that is transiting small boats in foreign waters. They knew how to do it. And they say today, as I said to you on the show the other day, remember I said they had multiple GPS devices? I knew it as a small boater. You don't just rely upon your chart plotter. You have handheld GPS devices. Your cell phone is a GPS device. Do you know that? It's a compass and a GPS device. So you know just where you are. And so Iran says they strayed into Iranian waters. That's nonsense. It's a setup. And then he says, a SEAL sent this to a friend of mine, which I just got. Listen carefully, and I'm quoting now. For an open water transit between nations, the course is studied and planned in advance by the leaders of the Riverine Squadron, with specific attention given to staying wide and clear of any hostile nation's claimed territorial waters. The boats are given a complete mechanical check before departure, and they have sufficient fuel to accomplish their mission plus extra. And then, if for some inexplicable and rare circumstance, one boat breaks down, the other would tow it. That's why 2 boats go out on these trips. It's called self-rescue, and it's standard operating procedure. People are saying that they state with complete confidence that both Iran and our own government are lying. The boats did not enter Iranian waters. They were run down in international waters by Iranian patrol boats and forced to surrender. Listen to what I just said to you. This is a huge international incident.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282.
All right, now let's look at the other side of the coin. Welcome back to the Savage Nation. We know Donald Trump's going to win the Republican nomination, no matter what the party does. Now, let's look at Clinton. Her lead is evaporating, and some Democrats see 2008 all over again. But some are saying in the Washington Post that Hillary Clinton's national lead is slipping faster in 16 than it did in 08. That she's liable to lose to the crazy man, the crazy commie, Sanders. And they're terrified that if Sanders is the nominee, that not only will they lose, it'll destroy them all the way down the line, down to the State House. And they'll be back where they were, which is in the outhouse. Sanders, as you well know, is what he is. He is you talk about New York values. Sanders represents a certain type of New Yorker, the type I ran away from. Why I left New York in 1970. I ran away from people like this. Diehard socialist, communists, anti-Americans to their core. The Spritzer types. I couldn't stand them. And I didn't even know why I hated them. But here he is again. He's like a monster that came up from a swamp to plague us. An old-line union communist. It will destroy the Democrat Party, which is, I pray to God he wins the primary. Because let the people really decide for themselves whether they want America or they want the ex-Soviet Union. Because that's what it'll come down to. So the Democrats are saying, well, there's anxiety that many of our candidates have in swing districts where a Hillary Clinton nomination erases that anxiety. Really? No kidding. And so I say, go, Bernie, go. I may even contribute money to Bernie's campaign. Let's send him $10 each. Let's see him. I mean, that would really be the greatest thing in the world, to see Sanders beat Hillary and then have an outright election contest between communism and capitalism. I don't think America's ready for the Soviet Union, by the way. No, I don't really think so. So it's Sanders now. They're running head-to-head, Sanders versus Clinton in amongst Democrats. Not too long ago, she had a lead of 24 points. Now it's even Steven. So what do you think is doing this? Huh? Well, it's because he's promising everything to everybody for nothing, like every other dictator ever did. Not only would he print money, but everything would be free under Bernie Sanders. And he would certainly come down on the rich. Certainly come down on the rich. The rich would really get it. Yep. Well, let's see what happens whether we have a socialist running against an outright capitalist. If it is, it's 85-15. Because there's not an immigrant that comes to this country that wants to create here what they left behind there. Let me be very clear about it. Let me talk specifically about the Mexicans, legal or illegal, who come here. They leave a socialist country. Do you think they want to reproduce the country they left behind? They come here because it's a country where they can get ahead. It's a country where they can save money, buy a house, send their children to college. They know that Bernie Sanders is a representative of the opposite of that. They know what he represents. And they know that with Donald Trump, they're just liable to be more, let us say, affluent than with any other Democrat in particular, but specifically with Bernie Sanders. So I think that Sanders' looks and his ideology is going to be a gigantic charade for us to enjoy. And the one thing that I like about Bernie Sanders is that he's never, ever, ever stopped saying he's a socialist. Now, he is lying about that as well, because he's not a socialist. He's a communist. He has been since childhood. That's what he was raised on. Dirty Sanders was raised on communism. Dirty Sanders was raised on anti-Americanism. Dirty Sanders was raised on virtually hating everything American. If you look back at Dirty Sanders' beginnings, if you look back to the days of Seltzer on the oilcloth floor, if you look back to the table talk with the cutting knives, and if you look at the history of Dirty Sanders' background and you look at his parents, what you have is an outright Soviet-style, Stalin-esque communist in plain English. America will not vote for him. Yes, he might appeal to a certain segment of the population, students. What do they know? What do they know? Nothing. In fact, I would raise the voting age to 26. Incidentally, I wouldn't lower it. I'd raise it. Because until you've had a job, you have no idea what life is all about. I mean, let's be real. What does a college kid know about life? Nothing, except what the professors stick in their ears. So, anyway, I hope he wins. I hope he defeats Hillary. And she goes on to a very happy life afterwards as a grandmother. And then we have Sanders versus Trump, and then Trump wins. Then we have to do what I said yesterday. I spent 1 hour. By the way, many of you leave the show after 2 hours. My entire third hour yesterday was memorable. I spent 1 hour delineating all of the left-wing organizations that need to be investigated when Trump becomes president. I named them one after the other. It was one of my best hours. It popped out of a deep understanding I have of the far left. And if you missed it, I'm sorry. I'll try to do it again for you one day. But there's no debates on the Democrat side. What debate have you seen? When have you seen a debate? None. And I hope that the former candidate on the Democrat side, the former Navy secretary, whose name I forget again, every day I raise his name and forget it the same day. And so do the guys who work for me. They can't remember again. Jim Webb. Sorry, Jim. I pray that Jim Webb comes back and runs as an independent Democrat. I would certainly welcome that. And the reason they knocked him out of the box is because he's an actual patriot. He believes in borders, language, and culture, and you know that the Democrat socialist Pelosi machine can't have that. So here's the callers now. WMAL, James, you're calling about the Iranian false flag incident. What's your opinion?
Well, my opinion is that having flown in that area as a former military pilot and actually being called on the radio from the Iranians trying to get me to come into their airspace, this could be a possibility of the same thing, of false radio calls being put out and the boat being lured into Iranian waters by mistake.
Wait a minute. Let's be real. How do you get lured if you have a GPS and you know what the charts show you? How can you get lured?
You can get lured in the fact that they can, for example, for aircraft, it could be the transponder has a certain code on it. Aircraft, with this transponder code, you have entered Iranian airspace, and they give you some directions that way. And if you think that, I really am in that airspace, that could be a possibility.
So you think the Iranians lured them in to make themselves look like benevolent people? Basically, you're saying that.
Yeah, lured them in.
Well, I would go further, and I would just go back to my main point. This is a kabuki play between the Obama administration and the terrorists that run Iran. And I thank you for the call. I want to know who the fleet commander was. I mean, ships don't operate in a vacuum. These little boats came off a bigger boat. The bigger boat was part of a fleet. The fleet answers to somebody back in the U.S. Where were they? Where's the chain of command here? Where's the chain of command? Why are we not hearing a word about it? Because there's something that stinks here. Something is very wrong with this picture. But let's go back to Democrat, Republican, something I don't often do. But before we do, we're going to go to Sean Penn, who gave a little pre-interview today on his meeting of the year with the gentleman who runs the drug cartel, the Sinaloa cartel. I really don't envy Sean Penn right now. I think that the man's ego got in the way of whatever brains were left after all those fast times at Ridgemont High and all those fast times at Hollywood High and all those fast times getting high. I would say that his brains are so scrambled he doesn't know what he was doing, and he was so desperate to be relevant and to be... Look, he won Academy Awards. He's revered as an actor, right? But what did he want that he doesn't have? He wants respect for his intelligence. Okay, he's like Frito in The Godfather. I'm smart. I'm
Send
smart.
Fredo off to do this. Send Fredo off to do that. Let Fredo take care of some Mickey Mouse nightclub somewhere. I can handle things. I'm smart. Not like everybody says. Like dumb. I'm smart, and I want respect.
That's who Sean Penn is inside. He wants respect. He wanted to show the world how smart he was. So he invents the idea that he's a journalist. Yeah, now he's a journalist. So in the past, this journalist went to Iran and told us what wonderful people they were. Remember that? He told us the Ayatollah was a superb man and the Iranians were wonderful. He didn't talk 1 minute about the torture chambers and the death cells in Iran. That's Sean Penn for you. Then he went to Venezuela and talked about the genius of Hugo Chavez, or what a wonderful man he was. He has an affinity for very evil people. So now, what is he doing here? He didn't go there to meet El Chapo, he says. He did it for another reason. Listen to clip 11.
I have a regret that the entire discussion about this article ignores its purpose, which was to try to contribute to this discussion about the policy in the war on drugs. Let's go to the big picture of what we all want. We all want this drug problem to stop. We all want the killings in Chicago to stop.
There's nothing to do with this. Now he's going in. Now he's a drug czar. He went suddenly from being an alleged user to a drug czar. Now he goes into calling himself a journalist in clip 12. Listen to this one.
When you get the story that every journalist in the world wanted, there's a lot of green-eyed monsters who are going to come give you a kiss. Of course, I know that there are people who don't like me out of the gate. At the same time, you know, when journalists who want to say that I'm not a journalist, well, I want to see the license that says that they're a journalist.
Do you notice how shaky his voice is? I mentioned that to the young men who produced for me this morning when we reviewed this snippet of an interview. There's a shakiness to his voice. He's very unsure of himself, very insecure, which I've noticed before with Sean Penn. When he's on screen, he's very confident. When he's reading other scripts, and he's got a good director, he's very, very, very good in speaking. But when he's off script, he's very shaky and very weak and very hesitant. But what he just said there is kind of ludicrous. Now he's a journalist. Now, why is he trying to establish the fact that he's a journalist? I'll give you one reason why. Because if you're a journalist, you're immune from prosecution by the U.S. Justice Department for not giving up the source of a wanted fugitive. So now he's hiding behind the idea that he's a journalist when he's not a journalist. I know the difference between being a journalist and being a commentator because I'm the latter, not the former. And I'm proud to tell you, I am a commentator. Sean Penn is neither a commentator nor a journalist. He is an actor. That's what he is. And just because the San Francisco Chronicle or the drug magazine, Rolling Stone, gave him some fake credentials does not make the man a journalist. He is at most, what would you say, a commentator? What is he, a columnist? That doesn't make him a journalist. I mean, with all due respects to a field that I often bash, there is such a thing as objective journalism. It's very difficult to achieve, but we all respect it when it is achieved. In our country, unfortunately, they've gone so far that they won't name a perpetrator if the perpetrator is not white, or show you a picture unless he's a white man. You understand that. We understand how it's been bent out of shape. That's also not journalism. And that's the kind of thing we're all trying to, leave behind us in this country. The nightmare that we're living through over these last years, which was not started by Obama, but certainly has metastasized into a cancer beyond belief. So we're hoping that when Trump becomes president, we have journalism back again. But Sean Penn is not a journalist, is my main point. The point is that he's terrified of being indicted by the U.S. government, But his real danger, in my estimation, is not from the U.S. government because it's run by like-minded individuals. I really don't think that Loretta Lynch is going to indict Sean Penn for not, doing what they say has to be done. It's, according to Michael Levine, the DEA undercover officer was on the show, his real threat is going to come from the Mexican government. They do not have the same niceties of law in Mexico that we have here. And in fact, the Mexican government may indict Sean Penn for what he did. We'll have to wait and see. We're all looking from the outside in. Back in a minute.
What did happen was that in record time, the situation was resolved. The soldiers are safely returned, and I think that the diplomacy that was established during the negotiation of the accord helped facilitate that speedy. I think it's really even speedy resolution of the situation.
Okay, Nancy Pelosi likes what happened in the Gulf. She loves that our soldiers, I guess sailors, she didn't know the difference. Just some dopey guys in uniforms were captured, apologized, one of them forced to wear a burqa-like outfit and admit that they were wrong. She calls that diplomacy. Now, the only question is that which senators and congresspeople in America have relatives, distant or otherwise, who are going to directly or indirectly benefit from the new accord with Iran and the release of $100 billion over the weekend. Which one of them will be in construction projects along with Iran? Which one of them will be in ravioli-producing plants with the Iranians? Which one of them will be in tuna-producing plants with the Iranians? I really don't know. But people are saying that the reason so many senators and congresspeople are so enthusiastic about the new accord and the diplomacy with Iran is because their families or cronies will benefit enormously from the New Deal. That's all. That's what people are saying. So here we are. It's almost the end of Friday already, with 50 seconds left to hour 2. And the big issue of the day is the fact that in the boxing match last night of the debates, Trump knocked Cruz out of the ring. And I wish Cruz the best because I want to see this guy serve the United States of America as Attorney General or as Defense Secretary. What a country it would be. Could you imagine? The only one on that stage who I don't think is qualified for anything is Rubio. I don't know what Rubio could run. I don't know that we have a Department of Ice Cream. That maybe he can run an ice cream department, but we don't have one. Wait a minute, he could take over Ben and Jerry's, and we could rename it. It could be called Ben and Rubio's, or Rubio's and Jerry's, or something like that. Dow is down 400 points, and where's the president who told us the economy's never been better? Who's he partying with today? Oh, he's on YouTube. We got that sound. When you hear this?
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage. Warning. The Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, America's most exciting radio talk show, The Savage Nation. Talk radio for the thinking person, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, Michael Savage.
Hey, Susie, wake up. Wake up. Hey, Susie, wake up.
So the con man in the White House just signed another executive order, right? I'm not making it up. The con man signed an executive order that gives John Kerry the authority to sign off on the expected IAEA verification with Iran and give the terrorist Islamic terror state of Iran $100 billion to use to build missiles. You can't believe this. Now, the other day, he gave a speech about how the economy was doing great under him, and there was great applause, which was a shocker, because what happened today? The market fell another 400 and some odd points. Walmart announced they're going to shut 154 stores in the United States. All the leftists will applaud, but take a guess what that really means. 16,000 employees are going to lose their job, 10,000 of them in the United States. Do you have any idea what this really means to the people who work in Walmart? Forget the leftists who don't like Walmart because it's not a boutique store that they approve of, that they don't even shop in. I love that about all the leftists. They want cute little boutique stores in their neighborhood that they can't afford to shop in. But they hate Walmart because it's an evil box store. Well, the economy's not doing well, Mr. Obama. Walmart's closing 269 stores, more than half of them in the United States. Another big number of them in Brazil. That's a big deal. That means something's going on in the economy. But something else is going on. The president's popularity has sunk to such a low that he's now hiding behind YouTube appearances for his interviews. You talk about journalism? He goes to 3 unknown pajama-wearing bloggers who have little tiny YouTube channels. I swear I'm not making this up. And the president of the United States of America, who is too cowardly to appear on any radio talk show in the country that opposes his policies. He will not appear on a single radio talk show that opposes his policies. He goes on a YouTube channel and discusses things that you'll not believe, simply to reach idiots who watch YouTube on a regular basis. Listen to this right now. Here's the first one.
Something that's really important to me and my audience is women's health. Yeah. And recently I was shocked to learn that pads, tampons, and other menstrual products are taxed as luxury goods in 40 states. Yeah. And I don't know anyone who has a period that thinks it's a luxury.
Because I think that's fair to say. Michelle would agree with you on that.
Yes, because it's something that's part of our everyday lives and is really crucial to our health as women. Right. And so I want to know, why do these items continue to be taxed?
I have to tell you, I have no idea why states
this is the president
would tax these as luxury items. I suspect it's because men were making the laws when those taxes were passed. And I think it's pretty sensible for women in those states that you just mentioned to work to get those taxes removed. Those aren't federal taxes that are imposed. Those are state taxes, state law. So it'd be governors and state legislatures who would have to reverse those.
Here's the president of the United States, the same week the stock market is plummeting, the same week that 10 Navy sailors are humiliated by a terror nation, sitting down with a YouTuber and discussing state taxes on tampons. But it gets even better. Next, he speaks to another YouTuber about another very important topic, something on the mind of every American. Listen to this one.
As a black male who wears his hat backwards from time to time, I get racially profiled. Okay, most recent story I have for you is driving, pulled over to send some text messages, cop pulled up behind me, call for backup. They're all over me, harassing me for my ID, registration. Third cop is driving by, kind of just like, I get harassed often. I've learned to live with the harassment, but people are dying now.
Poor man.
I can't sit by and let that happen. So my thing to you is, I feel like law enforcement, they're just bullies with badges at this point.
Oh, shut up, you punk.
Camera, they're killing people, and they go to the court of law.
You're a bully on YouTube, you little punk, you. Shut up! Shut up, you cowardly punk, hiding behind a YouTube channel. If it wasn't for the cops, you'd be roadkill. I can't believe that the president, I know how bad these people are on YouTube. They're basically bullies. They're cyber bullies. But now you have the president humiliating us as people who have to listen to this, going before these lowlifes. And the first one discusses taxes on tampons, and this one talks about being bullied by cops. He said he was texting, didn't he? Didn't that YouTube punk just say he was texting and was pulled over by a cop, and then he turned it into a racial incident? Goodness, it gets worse by the day, because wait, it gets worse by the minute. The president today went to another YouTuber who interviewed him to show you how desperate he is Barack Obama is more desperate than Sean Penn for a little more fame, to milk a little more fame out of him, out of his imagery here. He goes to another one. Listen to this one now.
Now, our boy Donald Trump is doing his thing, and the people want to know, especially my friends. They want to know. They're saying they're watching the media. The stuff that he's saying is just, it's a zoo.
Right.
And my friends have wanted me to ask you, are you embarrassed for the American people? Because it's just like pandemonium out here when you watch what's going on in the headlines.
Well, look, I think it's really early in the process. Mm-hmm. If you look at previous elections.
Or turn it off. I can't listen to this. This is as low as he's gone. That's an engineer who makes, is that Destin Sandlin, the last one? That's the one with the friend who says Trump is a this and a that? Which one was that? What is he, an illegal immigrant? And he doesn't like what Trump has to say about illegal immigrants stealing tech jobs? Is that it? So he speaks about tampons. He speaks about a false sense of racial profiling. And then he speaks about people stealing jobs from American tech workers. And he is the president of the United States of America. I would say this kind of interview is below the presidency. But then again, we've never had a president that has been this low on the totem pole of dignity. Never. It's impossible to believe this. I would say that Sean Penn is more of a journalist than Barack Obama. You say, well, wait, Obama never said he's a journalist. Well, what is he doing talking to people who make YouTubes? Now, I have a YouTube channel, don't I? People tell me I do. I don't know anything about it. I don't make them. But I have, I think, hundreds and hundreds of YouTubes that people have made from all my many years. And I think now I'm going to create a YouTube channel for myself, if there isn't one. Look at the numbers here. Combine the 3 YouTube stars, attention Spielberg, have more than 12 million subscribers. The White House has roughly 634,000. I would venture a guess that if I actually invest any time in my YouTube presence, I can greatly exceed that in a very short period of time. But I don't think I need to. I have an audience of millions on the radio show. Why would the president go to YouTubers who are not known for any intelligence, not known for any intellect? What is he doing? He's not running for office. Why do you think he would do this? Why would the president debase himself and the office of the presidency by talking with an unknown YouTuber about the price of tampons, another one about wearing his hat on backwards, with an alleged case of racial profiling, if we know that this has gotten cops killed already in the country through this hate campaign against police, and then to go to some other guy and talk about Donald Trump being an evil man for wanting to crack down on illegal immigration? Why would he do this? Back in a minute.
If there was an element named after you, Obamium. You've never been asked this, I hope.
I have never been asked this.
Yes. Right? So the question is, this is fantastic. So what would you want the physical properties?
What would be the elements? What would be the characteristics?
Is the element.
What would be the characteristics of Obamium?
That's right. That's right.
Now, that's interesting. Well, you know, I would want it to be stable.
Excellent.
I would want it...
Very noble, so maybe
yes,
noble gas.
Yes.
Okay.
I would want it to be a catalyst, but one that didn't get too hot or too cold.
Okay, fantastic.
And hopefully it would be one that was useful to humanity, that we could actually use.
So there's Obama on another YouTuber. He didn't know what an element was. He said, what are the elements of the element? Which he caught himself immediately. The earphone went off. Must have given him some headache. And the guy asks him an intelligent question. If an element were named for you and it was called Obamium, or Obamium, Bumeran, what would the characteristics of this element, Obamium, be? And Obama actually intelligently says, I'd like it to be stable and a catalyst, which I thought was an intelligent answer, incidentally. But he is actually unstable, and he certainly is a catalyst for division and for revolution. There's no question about that. So he'd be a combination, if you were to find an element name an element, Obamium, it would be sort of on the order of magnesium combined with something else. Remember when you're in high school chemistry, when you dropped a little piece of magnesium in water, it sizzled and threw off a white smoke? That would be sort of Obama combined with some other characteristic, I think. Somebody sent me this, and I don't think it's off color. I've been pondering whether to read it on the air, and I hope that you don't find it offensive at all. I really mean that. But I don't find it offensive. I think it's intelligent, and it's related to science in a way along the lines of what we just did. And it was this. It says chaos theory. In chaos theory, the butterfly effect is the name given to the sensitive connection between initial conditions in which an insignificant event in one state in nonlinear systems can result in sometimes catastrophic events in the universal state. In other words, although unlikely, it is possible for a butterfly flapping its wings in Texas to cause a typhoon in the Japanese Sea. Case in point, they write, in mid-20th century America, an 18-year-old hippie freshman in a Honolulu college had sex with an older alcoholic Kenyan on a student visa who had a wife and a child back in Africa. And this less than significant event started the collapse and dissolution of the United States of America. That came to me blindly from nowhere, called chaos theory. And it does relate in a way to with the science corner that we're discussing now on the Savage Nation. I think if he goes to a blogger to talk about tampons or alleged police brutality, and then to the characteristics of an unknown element called obamium, I think we can also talk about chaos theory as it relates to this man who has caused exactly that around the world. But why would he go on to these YouTube channels? He's not running for office. What's he doing? Justin, KSFO, what's he doing? Why is he doing it?
Mike, I think, anyone with half a brain would realize that this man is the most narcissistic figurehead that ever lived. And I think he needs constant validation to feed his narcissism. So I think, he's appealing to these low-life YouTubers to kind of feed this high that he constantly needs.
Interesting, the high. Where did we talk about that the other day? It's the same with Sean Penn. He needs this constant reassurance that he's a great man, a great actor, and he won the Academy Award a number of years ago, but where has he been since then? Nowhere. Hasn't been seen or heard from, so now he suddenly needs to be, rewarded as a journalist? It's the same kind of thing, this constant need for ego feed, right?
Correct, absolutely.
But we get it every day on the radio. We narcissists in talk radio get this on a daily basis from our talk shows. I got this funny thing, we're using the word narcissism on a regular basis now about Obama, but it's not unique to him. Anybody in the media is fundamentally mildly narcissistic, and if they're really good at it, they're probably a major league narcissist. That's the truth. So I think that narcissism per se is not a bad thing. I think it's how you use your narcissism. Think about what I'm saying. No one's ever dared take this on, but let's go with it. You mind if I go with this for a minute? Let's look at a great surgeon. Wouldn't you say that a man or a woman who wants to be a great surgeon has a degree of pride and a desire to be admired? Would you call that narcissism? How would you differentiate a fine surgeon who wants to be recognized as a fine surgeon from a narcissist? And is narcissism not required in all attributes of life that are out of the ordinary? Wouldn't you say that, Justin?
I would say so, Mike. I think it's, important to feel confident.
You see, we've never discussed this, but, my show, it says it's a show for the thinking person, right? Talk radio for the thinking person. I added that this year for a reason. This is the kind of question I love more than any. We call Obama a narcissist. And then I say to you that I in talk radio am a narcissist, as is anyone else who succeeded in this business. And that's true for any sports figure. It's true for any doctor who's exceptional. It's true for anyone in any walk of life who does things and is recognized for it. So where is the differential here between narcissism and a desire to be admired? And moreover, is narcissism necessarily a bad thing? And that's why when we say narcissism about Obama, I think we need to qualify it and not simply say narcissist. I would say he's an unhealthy narcissist. An unhealthy narcissist seeks attention for actions that may not be productive for the individual's family or society as a whole around them. And that's what we mean when we say Obama's a narcissist. It's not that he's just a narcissist, he's an unhealthy narcissist. And I would say that you could apply that to most people in Hollywood. So what would healthy narcissism be? What would healthy narcissism be? Wouldn't it be a preacher, for example, in a church who gets up there and has such charisma that he can move an audience? Wouldn't you say he's driven somewhat by, what do you say, pride, self-love, a desire to be admired? Is that not narcissism? Where does that end and narcissism begin? I don't know. Is there a psychiatrist in the audience? So I think that we redefine the term, and we won't just say that Obama's a narcissist anymore. But why is he reaching out on YouTube is the question. I don't know that this has to do with narcissism. He's a community organizer. He's organizing a community. To him, the YouTubers are a community of voters, future and present voters. So he's just trying to drum up business for the failing Democrat brand, the brand he has single-handedly destroyed. He has single-handedly destroyed the Democrat Party. My feeling is that Trump is going to win by the biggest landslide in modern history, and then it's going to be a catastrophic for the Democrat Party right down to the local election level. Socialism is dead.
Join the Savage Nation. Call now, 855-400-SAVAGE, 855-400-7282. Savage.
She looked at my palm and she made a magic sign. She said, what you need is love potion number 9.
Number 9, that's something this country can use. Welcome back to the Savage Nation. So, the President of the United States of America ignores the stock market crash, ignores the humiliation of the U.S. Navy, and goes on a YouTube channel today with 3 unknown YouTubers, talks about the taxation on tampons, alleged police brutality, and something else. So it leads you to ask, what's he doing? Why is he doing this? What is he doing? Why is he going YouTube? And I ask myself, okay, so I just looked up my name on YouTube. I had to do that because I never do. And I'm running about 20,000 a day. Someone's illegally posting all of my shows. They probably mean well by it, but truthfully, it's copyrighted content. It's owned by Cumulus Broadcasting. The thing is they're taking every one of my shows and putting them on YouTube, and 10,000 people view it one day, 20,000 another, 22,000 another, 27,000 another. So if you were to average it out, at 20,000 a day times 5 days a week, 100,000 views a week, 400,000 views a month, that's 5 million people a year are looking at my YouTubes. And yet the president doesn't go on any talk radio show that has any criticism of his crazy administration, doesn't want to debate any issue whatsoever with anyone who opposes him. Instead, he goes onto a YouTube channel. I would welcome the president on the show. Of course, he'd never come on the show. Under any circumstance, would he? I think he would do very well, by the way. He's an extremely skilled rhetorician. He's not an easy man to debate, by the way. Don't assume he's easy. He wouldn't be president if he was easy. None of them are. But the thing is I'd like to be able to talk about why is he letting the borders melt down? Why doesn't he crack down on the fact that so many ballots are in so many languages when they should be only in English? And why, you'll get the picture. I don't have to read the whole litany to you of what I would say if the president were to grant me an interview, but it's never going to happen. Let's go to Jeremy on KLIF Radio in Dallas, my new affiliate. Jeremy, tell us what a narcissist is as opposed to a person who has great pride in what they do.
Absolutely. I'll put it to you this way. There's this thing called that all personality disorders suffer from one thing, the inability to have insight. In other words, they can't see how anything that they do influences a single outcome, especially their own. That's part of it, just for personal.
Wait, let me start. You mean they don't know that they influence at all? They have no idea?
Yeah, no, it's 100% lost on them. They feel like the world's like a clock, and that humankind was set in motion like a clock, and they're just doing their part by being the greatest at everything, for the most part.
Wait, I'm not following you. So in other words, when Obama signs an executive order, he's not being a narcissist?
Well, it just depends on how you look at it. Him signing an executive order is simply a formality, because his idea for whatever the executive order is was something that should have happened a long time ago, and finally he's here to do it. So it's a strange thing where it's not outcome based, which makes it almost insidious and very difficult to treat.
Oh, so let's take the president out of the discussion. We all know people in our lives who we consider to be overly narcissistic. In love with themselves, in other words, right? Isn't that a common way of putting what narcissism is? Oh, she's in love with herself, right?
It actually, they suffer from what's called the personal fable. And what that means is, they are as preoccupied with themselves as they feel the world is with them. And so in other words, Obama goes on YouTube because he thinks everybody wants to see him on YouTube. And because he's preoccupied with himself in that way, he feels the rest of the world must be as well. Now, this is something that's normal in adolescence. Adolescents need that kind of fable to survive. But when those things start to appear...
Well, hold it. What do you mean by a fable? Repeat again what you mean by a fable.
Okay, so an adolescent thinks that the world is as preoccupied with them as they are with themselves. Now, that's part of their survival mechanism to get through adolescence, because they don't have the emotional...
Well, wait, isn't it? Well, wait, let's go back before that, Doctor. An infant would be the ultimate narcissist, wouldn't they?
Right. I mean, if they had insight, but they don't. They're not. It's not something that they're doing from. I mean, I think we're pretty much the only species that's born helpless anyway. And so, what ends up happening is with an infant. I mean, we're required to take care of them. And in adolescence, as a child starts to gain their independence and enter in the adult world, they're faced with problems that they don't necessarily have the skills to deal with. So anytime you see adolescent behavior in an adult, you start thinking right away personality disorder. And now,
what about infantile behavior in an adult? Let's go back. I mean, we know there's a lot of adults who behave like adolescents. That's something that's rather common. But what about adults who behave like infants, who are literally infantile in virtually everything they see and do?
Put it to you this way. One good way to look at it, to answer your question, is that anytime an adult is displaying childlike behavior, then you can start to look back at, you look at what developmental age they're displaying and what behavior they're displaying, and something at that time in their life stunted their growth. And so it's a regression back to that particular age.
Wow.
Something prevented that growth. And so it's normal for you, for example, to think that you are the greatest radio talk show host in the world, or else why would you be doing it? But if you feel that that's true, and you go home and say, well, because I'm the greatest radio talk show host in the world, that must mean I'm the greatest cook, the greatest baseball player, the greatest person to ever put gas.
Wait a minute. So you tell me I'm not as crazy as I think?
You know what Carl Jung said? Carl Jung said, show me a sane person and I'll cure him. Only the people that think they're normal.
Well, I'm very introspective, and I analyze myself a little too much. I have my whole life, but I started this conversation by saying, let's not be so quick to accuse Obama of being a narcissist, because anyone who achieves anything in our society, whether it be a surgeon, sports figure, and myself included, we all think that we're great, or else we wouldn't be able to do what we do. So what you're saying is that kind of, let us say, self-pride is somewhat narcissistic, but not, what, a pathological form of narcissism?
Well, check this out. If you were going to have a major surgery, like when I was going to school, I worked in heart surgery for 2 decades. And if you had to have heart surgery and you had your choice between a heart surgeon that thought he was the greatest heart surgeon in the world and charged you $20,000 for the surgery, or a heart surgeon that thought he was pretty good and was charging you $10, where would you go? I mean,
I would go to the most famous heart surgeon who had tremendous faith in himself or herself. No matter what it cost me, I'd go to I don't care how big their ego is, I want to know what the results are. That's a different story than Barack Obama, who thinks he is the greatest president, who's had terrible results and is in denial about his results. Witness the stock market in light of what he said Tuesday, that the economy's booming. Witness what happened with the Iranian capture of our sailors, when he said it didn't even happen. And we have the greatest military in the world. So that's a little different, isn't it? That's sort of an unhealthy view of the world because it's a pathological form of narcissism?
Yes, it's pathological. It's pathological because by the nature of his personality, his success is already determined. So none of these...
So in other words, a pathologically narcissistic individual doesn't even know reality. Isn't that what you're saying?
And they don't have the insight to be redirected whatsoever. Like you and me, I mean, we can take criticism. I mean, I might get upset about it. I might not like it. I might not want to hear it. I might act like a jerk, or I might have to figure it out a couple days later. But I mean, I can take a hit. You know what I'm saying? And I can be redirected because I'm getting bad results. If I do something and I don't get a result I like, I'm going to do something different the next time. But they don't operate that way because their success is predetermined. And so no amount of insight is going to cause them to redirect their behavior or redirect their thought process. Their success and their stature and their whatever is already predetermined. That is it's not shakeable.
So let's look at the Republican candidates last night. The most narcissistic amongst them would be Donald Trump, correct?
I agreed.
But it doesn't mean that it's a pathological narcissism. It could be a healthy narcissism based upon his achievements, his accomplishments. I would say that that's a healthy narcissism, correct?
Well, sure. I mean, from a professional standpoint, there aren't a lot of degrees in personality. So, like, for example, you know, he would fall. Obviously I don't know the man, but I mean, he would fall on that spectrum. But I guarantee you that you can find areas in his life where he's either been redirected or taken advice. I mean, a narcissist isn't going to surround themselves with a bunch of good advisors. Look at Obama. But Donald Trump will get into office and surround himself with the best of the best to help him in decision making. That's not a narcissistic quality. Not on any level.
Why? How do you know Donald Trump would do that? What leads you to believe he would be different than any other man who has achieved the presidency based upon his ego? Tell me what makes him different.
He's done it up until this point with his business. He has a track record of surrounding himself with people who can get things done, with people who make certain decisions and make good decisions. It's part.
All right, and Obama surrounds himself with flunkies.
I mean, I shouldn't say that, but I mean, in my opinion, he surrounds himself with people who are as committed to the outcome as he is. In other words,
well, Ronald Reagan was very much like that. Ronald Reagan said he surrounds himself. He finds smart people to do the things that need to be done. And you know, in other words, he can delegate. A smart man, a smart leader can delegate authority. That's the differential between a really smart man and someone who simply wants to lord it over others, I would think, correct?
That's perfect. And I'll even take what you just said, which is killer, and I'll take it one step further. One of the biggest lessons I learned from the time that I served in the military was that you can delegate authority, but you cannot delegate responsibility. And that's the problem. And so you have somebody like Obama in the Obama administration. He surrounds himself with people who can't necessarily get things done, has a bad outcome. He's not going to take responsibility for it if we're even lucky enough for him to consider it to be a bad outcome. He won't, you know what I'm saying? Because he thinks he can delegate authority and responsibility. That's a trait of his. That's a trait of what appears to be his issue. I don't think Trump would fall into that category. But you know, how do I know? But he wouldn't achieve the success he's achieved in the way that he's achieved it if that was the case. Because you can, like,
right? He gets up on Tuesday at the State of the Union address and says that the sailors. He didn't even mention it, by the way. And then he said that we have a great economy and we have the market collapsing. So, okay, so he's disconnected from reality, goes on YouTube for adulation from people who he doesn't know for what reason. How does it differ for him going on YouTube from a politician doing public appearances of any kind in a stadium? How does it differ?
Because there's no threat. I mean, everything that he does is, you know, he wants to be able to increase his exposure without increasing the threat to himself. It's just like anything. It's just like target shooting. I have a muscle.
Oh, in other words, when Trump gives a speech at a rally, yeah, he can be criticized and throw the person out, but Obama is so insulated that no one can even criticize him ever, anywhere, under any circumstance.
Because he can't think about his next move. See, Donald Trump knows enough. Donald Trump or any reasonable person or whatever who's achieved success knows that whatever course correction that they're faced with, that they're going to be able to navigate it. Obama doesn't know that. He has this myopic tunnel vision of what he wants to accomplish with something, and nothing can disturb or distract it because he knows that he's not going to be able to be redirected because of what I said to you before. It's just like a giant naval ship. I was on a ship for a while. If you do a course correction in the ocean by 1 degree, it's not a big deal for a little bit, but the next thing you know, you're in another hemisphere.
Well, you know, I gave that about 7 years ago. I gave that exact story. That 1 degree of separation from a true course doesn't seem like much when you make that alteration. However, far from that point of deflection, it becomes an enormous differential. And I said that's why a president who deflects the nation even by 1 degree, it doesn't seem like much in the beginning, but downstream it's enormous. And he's deflected us far more than 1 degree of separation from where we should be.
And this might just take some comfort in this, because you're kind of one of my heroes. But you know, I never heard you say that story. But just so you know, that is something I use with my clients on a daily basis. Just so you know.
What do you mean? By telling them that although they've only gone off course by 1 degree, it's had enormous effects on their life?
Exactly, and I'm able to use that analogy when they've either made a great stride in their work that they're doing from a psychological perspective, or when they've fallen backwards in a way that's going to cause them harm in the future. It's just most nautical metaphors and stuff I found very useful in my practice. It's just people.
So do I. I live by the water, and I learn a lot from the birds, and I learn a lot from the seals and the fish, from the waves and the wind, and I learn a lot from the tides. I learn more than I do from reading about global warming for people in universities who don't even know what's going on down at the level of the bay. Dr. Jeremy, psychiatrist, psychologist extraordinaire on KLIF. Thanks for being with us. Hold on one quick second before I break. So I wake up this morning. I live near the water in San Francisco Bay. I hear a racket from the birds. I look out. There's thousands of them feeding on the rocks off my house. The herring are running, and it's something to watch. The poor birds were really at the end of the ropes the other day. You know, I normally throw them some bread in the morning. I saw they were very hungry, and the rain came. I said, how the heck do these animals eat? It's going to get rainy now. What do they do? Where do these poor animals... 2 days later, there's thousands of them feeding off the rocks because the herring came in, and they lay their eggs into the rocks. You can't believe it and how the birds get along. They don't peck each other. First come the big birds. The huge birds came in first. The pelicans, which I go crazy watching them. And then the smaller bird, and the smaller bird, and the smaller bird, and then the seals. Back in a minute. For the last minute of this show, I got to tell you, there's a major international story that I've not seen in the major press at all. Russia has gone around Israel and set up a joint command center with Jordan to achieve its objective of restoring the Assad regime control in South Syria. This is an enormous story. The Russian-Syrian military agreement is open-ended. It's powerful. And now Putin, by the way, Putin sees Syria as a client state, incidentally. And he wasn't going to let Syria fall into the hands of ISIS or have his puppet leader, if you want to call Assad that, overthrown by Barack Obama or the West in any way. And as you well know, he moved in there to shore up Assad. Well, now he did something else the other night which didn't make it to the news. And that is Russia set up a joint command center with Jordan. And now they can avoid Israel and achieve the Russian objective of restoring the Assad regime control in South Syria. I believe this is actually good news for Israel's survival, incidentally. Thanks for listening. Good night.
Savage.